If you shower or brush your teeth or try to make your hair look presentable, here's some good news. Dollar Shave Club has a lot of stuff to help you out. Dollar Shave Club delivers everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, toothpaste, hair gel, even a wipe that leaves your tush feeling tingly clean. All of Dollar Shave Club's products are made with top-shelf ingredients that won't break your budget. You'll feel the difference. Plus, shipping is free with your membership. And here's a great way to try a bunch of Dollar Shave Club's products for just $5. You can get their Daily Essential Starter Set. It comes with Body Cleanser, One Wipe Charlie's, their amazing butt wipes, and their world-famous shave butter. And their best razor, the 6-Blade Executive. Keep the blades coming for a few more bucks a month and add in a shampoo, toothpaste, or anything else you need. Check it all out at dollarshaveclub.com/Chad. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Chad.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
People are lined up. They've been waiting for hours to make their way inside the Capitol Rotunda to pay their respects to former President George H.W. Bush. President Trump and First Lady were among the thousands who made their way inside to say a final goodbye to Bush 41.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, actually, to see all the people there. I spoke to Congressman last night, and he just said, he met him once. It was just an amazing man, an incredible, generous man who was you could tell that there was something about him. And but the more that I watch the news, it's not about Bush 41. Because many of the same people that are fawning over him couldn't stand him when he was president, couldn't stand his son when he was president, and they're just taking every opportunity to go, well, I didn't like them, but compared to this guy, they're great people. They're great human beings. They're amazing.
Shortly after word of Bush's death, the president abruptly called off his planned solo press conference, tweeting, "I was very much looking forward to having a press conference just prior to leaving Argentina because we have had such great success. We will wait until after the funeral." The president says the decision was made out of respect for the Bush family, a gesture that follows more than 2 years of relentless attacks.
We'll be sending Air Force One, which is a special tribute that he deserves very much, and it's my honor.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Bush wants him at the funeral. He called him, I think he called him a blackguard or a buffoon or something like that. But Bush wants him there. That was kind of one of his things, is he wanted Trump there. And I think not having Trump there the McCain thing, okay, senator, war hero, they had their issues, obviously, but not having Trump there, that would have been so awkward. It really, really, really would have been extremely awkward. He had to be there, and it's one of those things where it's good to see that he's going there, and having him send Air Force One to get him, I think it was the right thing to do. But a lot of the questions, because as we all know, tomorrow, is it all of government, producer? I don't know I think it's all of government. All of federal government is closed tomorrow, including the post office. Except for some important things. And people are asking the very, very interesting question is why?
Why we are spending so much time on this funeral as a nation, because, we have to remember the president is, of course, not only the head of government, but also the head of state. So this is the closest thing we have to a national sovereign who's being buried. And so it's really a moment where the nation should be coming together to think about the things that unify us rather than divide us.
Yeah, and I get that. It's interesting. It is interesting, though, that the post office, everything is shutting down. We're all going to work. I'll be here tomorrow. Producer Phil will be here. You'll be there listening, and we'll be doing our thing. But I get it. It's very interesting to see the way that this is playing itself out. And the more that you listen to the commentators, the more that you listen to people talk about stuff, the more that you start to realize that, first of all, we live in a different world and a different time. Let's be honest about that. Right? Bush, I call it, pre-internet, post-internet, because it is a different world. And while there was internet, the social media has changed everything. And, you know, when I was talking to somebody yesterday, like, well, Clinton had this, Lewinsky, they survived their scandals. I said they survived their scandals in their day without the scrutiny of 24/7 news the way it is now and 24/7 criticism from the People's News Network, which is us on social media. I mean, I posted a picture of him at Rest in Peace, I think it was on Friday night, and I got just as much good riddance to him as I did rest in peace from people. Because people inherently can't stop bitching. That's what social media has given us. The opportunity to not be cordial anymore, but to bitch 24/7, to throw a fit whenever we want, to be able to say anything we would never say to anybody else's face. But we feel that we have the anonymity to do it. And so when I look at Trump and Bush, you know, Bush did live his life in a much different way, the way that he went about it. I mean, he was married to his wife for 73 years. He fought he was in combat, right, in World War II. I mean, this guy who had an amazing life. Public service was his life, not public interest in himself, which is a lot of what people think Trump is about. And yeah, rightly so. I get that, right? Trump is due all those criticisms. But I also want to point out in this day and age, the criticisms that Trump gets and that all politicians get nowadays is just ridiculous. It is insane. It really is. In fact, here's a story for you and talk about, and we've talked about this. We've talked about this. I talked to Congressman Schweikert last night, and he and I were talking. He says that he's got a bill that he and a Democrat put together, and it's a tech bill, and it's a bipartisan, should be non-political tech bill, right? Like this, we're not talking about this isn't choice or gun control. This is a tech bill that is a kind of a bipartisan, two guys that are friends put this thing together. They put this thing, it's not even a social media bill, right? It's like it is a tech bill. He puts it together. They got everything ready to roll, and it's bipartisan too, Republican, Democrat. And this is the world that we live in now. Think about where Bush came from, where Trump is today, when all the criticisms come in. And he says, the Democrat tells him, I can't have my name on the bill. And he's like, why? He goes, because if my name's on the bill and they see that I'm working with you, I'll get destroyed. My base will destroy me. And social media, I can't do it. What? Are you kidding me? And that's part of the problem, I think, today. When we say, why can't our politicians work together? Why can't they be in a situation where you see them coming together? It's because many people outside on both sides won't allow that to happen. Won't. And we talk about Bush and you know, we took it 41. We talk about he reached across the aisle. He was all of these things. Reagan. I always challenge you. In those days, you could do it in a way that I don't think you could do it today. I don't. Doesn't mean that Trump doesn't deserve a lot of the criticism he gets, but I always want to say, when I watch the media tear apart Trump right now because of his attitude and his fight with the media and the way that he acts, most of it is well warranted, but there's a caveat that gets thrown in there. When we compare him to other past presidents, remember what he's went through, and to a certain extent Obama, not really Bush, definitely not Clinton. I mean, Hillary's went through more hell on social media than Bill ever did. So let's remember that.
So I'll let you know the president and the first lady are walking in. Let's just listen in on this.
You know, he's not one to mend fences too readily. I think he's doing this because he feels he has to do it. And I'm also assuming that General Kelly has had a big hand in it. I do know from the Bush family that they are very appreciative and think the White House has just bent over backwards, gone to great lengths, been extraordinarily helpful.
You know, and I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have. You know, Trump is a lot of things, and, you know, because of the day and age that we live in, and I could do a lot more. I turn down opportunities. I don't want to go on a television show for 3 or 4 minutes and scream some ridiculous things. That's not who I am, right? I'm funny, right? I'm a pragmatist. I'm a person. People say you're a moderate. I'm not a moderate. I take my stand, but it's just not the same stand that's extreme on every single. I don't go one way or the other extreme, and that's what you need to do nowadays. You need to do that, and I think that's part of the issue. Is I think we've become so desensitized in this world that unless we're extreme, people don't pay attention. Right? It's no longer you can cry wolf and people run over. Now you have to cry it's a wolf that has a gun that is a radical Islam or white supremacist that is full of hate, that hates the LGBT community. You have to go to extremes to get noticed. And that's the sad thing. That is. And when you look at somebody like Bush, where as they laid him to rest, think about what Trump will be like in 15, 20 years or whenever he ends up passing. God forbid, it's no time soon. What is that going to look like? What is that going to look like? How is he going to be remembered? It's going to be very interesting. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. A lot of stuff to get to. This story, I found this to be interesting. Let's change subjects for a quick second. The fact that they had these bizarre rules over a snowball fight. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but they finally decided, maybe this is a dumb rule. Because, Phil, I didn't grow up in snow. You've grown up in snow. You're pretty much most of your life, right? You've never lived like a place like where I've lived, where like snow is like something we'd see in a movie or a book.
No, I've always lived where there was snow.
That sounds so miserable. No, when it snowed, were you allowed to have snowball fights?
Oh, yeah, we were. We did it all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the, okay, like the bad thing is it's snowing outside and it's snowing and it's cold and you got to wear this kind. The good thing is you got snowball fights. That's part of the fun. Well, finally, an antiquated 9-year-old kid does away with his snowball ban because he finds it to be stupid.
The ban on snowball fights in the town of Severance, Colorado, that had been around for close to a century, has been overturned, thanks in part to 9-year-old Dane Best.
I call this regular meeting to order.
Who convinced the town leaders Monday night that the ban was outdated. Best got to present his arguments at the town board meeting and had classmates write letters. Board members voted unanimously to put the ban on ice.
Sounds like you've just changed the law, buddy.
Dane's brother Dax will have to look out. Seems he will be Dane's first snowball victim.
Yeah, you know what he's doing next, right? Prostitution. So that Dane kid's doing some stuff. Chad, stop it! You're being a jerk. But I just found it to be interesting because when I read this, I'm like, that to me is more interesting than any of the other stuff that's going on today. It's like, isn't that the whole point? If you live somewhere it's snowy, that you should be able to sled, and you should be able to throw snowballs at each other. Like, that's why you live there, right? You live in Buffalo because it snows a lot and it's cheap and you can throw snowballs at each other. You live where you live, Phil, where it's not cheap, but the snow comes and you should be able to wind up a snowball and peg somebody in the face. That's part of the fun. Good God. In Colorado, I think that's like you come out of the womb throwing a snowball. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. AMAC, amazing. Incredible. Open enrollment's going on right now. They want to help you with that. They've partnered with Senior Resource Network. It's available for you to become a partner with them for free for a year. You can become a member, right? And along with that, you can work with Senior Resource Network, which will help you navigate through all of those important decisions when it comes to Medicare open enrollment and things like that. On top of that, AMAC gives you incredible things like retail, restaurant, hotel discounts that are so amazing. 40% off movie tickets, retail discounts across the board. They got travel discounts. They have everything you can think of. And if you're going to an amusement park, make sure you take your AMAC card because you're going to get big discounts there. AMAC.us/Chad. It is amazing the things that they do. And a lot of people said, well, why them? I said, well, they're the alternative. ARP is different. If you go to like certain websites, you can see the kind of money that ARP gives, and they give to a lot of left-leaning and uber-liberal organizations and people. AMAC is more conservative. They look at this. We're the conservative alternative. If you don't want your money going elsewhere, you don't have to worry about your money going to AMAC because they're not going to ask you for any. Give AMAC a try. A year membership free doesn't cost you a thing, and you're going to find out the results and the things that you get are amazing. Go to AMAC.us/Chad, amac.us/Chad, amac.us/Chad. 1 year free. It's on me. amac.us/Chad. AMAC is better for you, better for America. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, CHADBENSON. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
Preppers in Central Florida pull a 9-foot alligator from a pond. It thrashes in the murky water. Release what it took from its victim, a white sneaker left bobbing in the water. Florida Fish and Wildlife says an 85-year-old man was bitten on the foot by this alligator behind his home at a retirement community. That man taken to the hospital. A close call after 2 deadly alligator attacks over the summer. A Florida woman walking her dogs was dragged into a lake, and another woman walking her dog near a lagoon in Hilton Head, South Carolina, was killed after an 8-foot alligator pulled her underwater.
Yeah, alligators are everywhere, right? Like, if you're going to drain the swamp, if you get away from D.C., Trump, you might want to go to Florida. And the joke in Florida is if there's a puddle, there's probably a gator. You just got to watch out for gators. They're everywhere. And because I collect so many reptiles, right? So I love, that's my jam. People have said, have you ever owned alligators? I said, no, I've owned caiman, which are crocodiles. I have owned those. And they're not pets. They weren't pets. We use them as educational purposes. My friends still have them, and they use them as educational purposes. But it is crazy, right? Nature, and producer Phil, can I get this? What will nature do to you again?
Nature will mess you up.
Absolutely will mess you up. Period. Case closed. End of story. So if you're going out, be aware. Somebody may throw a snowball at you. You may get bitten by a gator, and you better watch out because sci-fi's probably thinking, sweet Jesus, we could have oh my God, ice gator, which would be awesome. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Christmas time is here, right? So it's right here. And the question is, credit or debit?
Which is safer for making that big holiday purchase using your credit or debit card?
Debit cards in many cases have become zero liability. The reality is that they still are attached to your bank account.
Adam Levin, founder of Cyber Scout and co-founder of Credit.com, says with ID theft on the rise during the holidays, credit may be the better choice. That is, as long as you pay that balance off promptly.
With a credit card, remember, it's their money. With a debit card, it's your money.
Yeah, well, the question is, do you want to pay now or do you want to pay later, but usually a lot more later, depending on how good your credit is? That's the big question, because we're still in debt from last year. This year, people feel good, and you got to watch that, right? I don't carry a lot of debt. That's never been I always, if I can't pay for it, I don't pay for it. And but it's the holidays. That's what we do sometimes. And every once in a while, we'll go big. We're going to get somebody something special. You got to be aware of that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. The Mueller investigation, the roadmap is there. It looks like it's coming to an end. What do we think we know? What do we think we don't know? We're going to touch on that. Plus, Kareem Hunt, there may be more. There may be more. That's not good. It's the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Mueller's investigation could be wrapping up shortly, according to a source familiar with communications between Mueller's team and defense lawyers. Quote, they've been telling people they are tying up loose ends now and trying to conclude. Alan Dershowitz wrote that in his column in the Wall Street Journal. This thing's reaching an end.
It is reaching an end. Now, just because it reaches an end doesn't mean that we're going to see it tomorrow. Doesn't mean that there's any criminality. Doesn't mean any of those things. It just means the investigation itself is coming up. The investigation, not the report, not putting things together, Not the roadmap as people say, what's the roadmap? What's the roadmap? Because that's the whole thing. In a situation like this, you're road mapping something. You're trying to it's a maze in many ways. And you're going in certain directions, and the whole thing is you want to get to, supposedly, the White House, in this case, is the end game. If you can get there. And that's a big if. Don Jr., Ivanka, Jared, I think Don Jr. in particular, and potentially Jared, although I got to be honest with you, I think Jared's a little smarter than that, are the ones who face the most real scrutiny when it comes to these things. But we won't know. It is coming to an end, though, the investigation, and then it's time to put the pieces together, and then we can see what the picture looks like.
Michael Cohen was right in there. He was snuggled in with Trump on everything he was doing. He was his fixer. He was the guy that dealt with the smelly, dirty stuff. He had to clean up things. He was the guy going around and cleaning up afterwards if he could, paying off the people if he could. It seems like Trump knows all this. Like in The Bad Guy in Columbo, he knows everything he's done, and he knows he's got to pay for it because Cohen knows everything he's done.
Yeah, but he knows everything he's done that's salacious. Him stooping an adult actress and then paying her to be quiet, which she wasn't. And by the way, I think they are asking for $350,000. She's come out and said that Avenatti actually went and filed all of these things and broke the silence and did the things kind of against her will, because now she's got to face the fact that there's legal stuff that she's going to have to pay for. And she's not thrilled by that. But him stooping somebody and then paying it, well, there's campaign finance. Is there? We got to find that out. And it's minor, so it maybe looks ugly, but the reality is that's not going to get him impeached. Michael Cohen is not the smoking gun and the end-all to be-all. He's the kind of guy that's your slimy lawyer. When you talk about slimy lawyers, it's this guy. He doesn't work for a big firm, right? He's not at some massive firm that is commanding $600 an hour and represents the top of 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 every Fortune 100 company and all. No. He is that dude that's kind of like he's just above that creepy private eye. That's the way I've always felt about him. So he knows the salacious side of things. The business side where this goes into, that's a little bit different. Right? Like, there's things you trust this guy with. You're like, it's fine. Yeah, like, and there's did you ever see the movie Goodfellas? Right? And they were talking about the KLM and what they were going to do to steal all of, when they did the airport heist, the KLM thing. And there's like, it's one of those things where like, who can know about it? Like, all of them were kind of mobsters, but some of them were kind of like fringe mobsters, and they couldn't be in that. He's not that way when it comes to this. So what he had and what he dangled probably wasn't all that in a bag of chips. It probably wasn't. It wasn't anything that people didn't already know. Did I already know that he stooped an adult actress? Yes. Did I know that Cohen's a liar? Absolutely. Did I know that chances are that he paid stuff out of his own and he played funny with some of the money? That's probably, yeah. I think that all of those things everybody knew. Mueller knew all of that stuff. Right? You're not telling anybody anything you didn't know, or anybody who just pays just a little bit of attention to this. They knew that. They did. It's the other stuff that people need to say, okay, what about these meetings? Who were these people? What was said in these meetings? Were there any real contacts between WikiLeaks and a bunch of other people that we can draw a line back to this? Because I think the Manafort thing's already done and dusted. That's gone away. That big, oh my God, that stuff's gone away. So, and now you have to say, okay, who are some of these things? Are there real characters that are involved in this that were specifically contacted and or contacted by the Trump campaign with the intent of trying to throw the election for Donald Trump? Not trying to find dirt. Everybody's trying to find dirt. It's not really a crime. Right? Not saying, oh, I stopped talking to Moscow in March when really it was September. If that's all you've got, come on. So That's what you're looking at this point in time.
Saying that Cohen deserves a full and complete sentence. Is that sound to you like the president is dangling a pardon to Stone?
It sure does. I mean, it is so wildly inappropriate. The idea that the president of the United States would be talking about witnesses and people convicted by his Justice Department. Remember, Robert Mueller is a Department of Justice employee. This way is just without precedent. Now, whether it is an actual obstruction of justice or just an egregious violation of the norms that every other president in history has abided by, I have a hard time figuring that out. I don't really have a clear answer to that.
Yeah, he's playing a game. He is. He knows that Roger Stone and this Corsi character are going to keep their mouth shut. They're going to stand strong. And the thing is that, you know what? If we all keep our mouth shut, we got nothing to worry about. This guy's going to pardon us. And this other guy, he wimped out and he just went, him and Trump. He didn't like the way that Trump treated him, so he ran off like a little child, and that's the way that they're looking at this. I don't know what's going to happen with all of this. But the reality is they're trying everything here. And I don't know if they're going to get everything here. I don't know what they're going to get out of all of this. I don't think anybody really knows what is going to happen because the facts is how many times have we've all been wrong when it comes to all of these investigations. We're guessing. And somebody like Trump probably knows what he did and didn't do for real, and he's not going to let it out. And on the other side, Mueller probably has cards that we haven't seen. And those cards may not lead to Trump, but it may lead to something I think maybe worse than Trump, which lead to his kids. And that, to me, I think is worse for Trump. Because I think that puts Trump in such an awkward position. He's like, I feel like he'd take the heat over for all of this over giving it to his kids, even if they've done something wrong. So it'll be very interesting to see the way that this plays itself out moving forward. And I'm, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we're going to get because I'm also not sure we're ever going to see any of it. That, to me, is the thing. Will we ever see any of this report, or is it going to be completely locked down? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. This guy was my favorite guy earlier this year, and he got shot down in court. And if you guys remember, his name is Emil Ragband, I think his name, Ragband. And, oh, God, he was just – this is the story, like, you're as young as you feel. And he said, yeah, that's great, but I'd like to take it a step further.
I feel I suffer under my age because I'm much more younger than my 68. So when I ask for a mortgage, for example, they say it's impossible. If I go on Tinder, then I get women from 68, 69 when the women are there. And when I'm on Tinder, then they say, okay, then you can lie for your age. You say you're 49. I don't want to lie. I want to be myself. So don't force me to lie.
So he's 68 years old, and he sued in Holland. He was sued the court. He's like, look at me. I'm a hip cat. I'm 68, but I don't feel 68. I don't want to lie to these girls, right? And I love how he's like, when I go on Tinder. When I try to get it more, I screw it. When I go on Tinder and I try to get some, they're like, hey, you're too old. You're a creeper.
But when I'm really 49 again, I will have a baby again. I will buy a new car again. I will paint my house again. I'm going outside and I invest my money again. Because now I'm old man. I have to save my money to give to my kids so they can live. But if I have that age again, I have hope again. I'm new again. And the whole future is there for me again.
Somebody's got to tell him, just because you can still do all those things, just call yourself. Well, I don't want to lie. I love but I don't want to lie. Oh, man, that guy's awesome. The court said no. Isn't that sad, though? So if you go into court and you say that you identify as whatever you want to identify as, right? You're a woman, you're nondescript, you want to just be a check mark, you want to be the you want to be the ad sign, you want to be whatever it is, right? I want to be a semicolon with two, squiggly faces, a line and a slash. And like, okay, like they'll be like, oh yeah, we don't want to take that away. But if you go into court and you say, look, I feel 48, and you're telling me I can't be 48 because even though I identify as a 48-year-old, you're saying no. Legally, though, if I came in and said I want to be a woman, you're like, okay, that's totally fine. That's hypocrisy. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Here's some other hypocrisy. If I told you to go anywhere else to get your meat, I'd be a liar and a jerk face. Butcher Box is it. And you don't have to go anywhere. They're going to bring it to you. That's why I love America. They're coming straight to you. Quality matters. That's why I made the switch to Butcher Box. No antibiotics, no hormones ever. Humanely raised. Free range and organic chicken. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Heritage pork. Sourced from pigs. And they're raised to keep their fat and their flavor the way it's supposed to be. You're not going to find the cuts, the quality, anywhere else. Not any store. Sam the Butcher doesn't have this. Nope. Just Butcher Box. Here's the thing that's amazing. And this is what's great. It's incredible. Less than $6 a meal per month. Boom! Limited time. This is what ButcherBox is doing. $40 off when you sign up for ButcherBox.com/Chad. That's $20 off your first box, $20 off your second box, and they're going to sweeten the deal with a little bit of the bacon in your first box. Boom. That's a win, kids. So you're going to get $40 off plus bacon in your first box. Sign up at ButcherBox.com/Chad. 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 At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. It is the Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
Brett Favre here with a shout out.
That clip, which we will not play in full, contains phrases that may seem innocent at first, but it's actually filled with coded language that's recognizable to those who hate Jewish people.
Yeah, so Brett Favre, the great football player, is he's in a bit of hot water. And he did something that he didn't know he did. And oddly enough, I think in this day and age, with the way that social media condemns people, it destroys people, it jumps on top of people, and it wants to finish people off because that's the kind of loving, forgiving nature we live in nowadays. They've been somewhat kind to Brett Favre because I think they realized they've been duped. And we've talked about this company before that Brett Favre's doing this thing with.
God bless and take care.
That was made with a website called Cameo. It's a new platform which allows people to hire celebrities to record personalized shout-outs. Users pay as little as $20 or upwards of $1,000 for short clips from movie stars like Wesley Snipes,
using Cameo now,
pop stars Lance Bass,
happy birthday, dear Lisa,
and reality TV stars like Real Housewife Bethany Frankel.
You are amazing.
So, you know, it'd be funny if you were Wesley Snipes, producer Phil. Do you think that you have to send half the money to them and then the other half to the IRS? For those of you who don't know, Wesley had a little issue with the IRS. And he's apparently got a lot more issue. I was surprised to find out how much money Wesley Snipes has made. That was the most shock. I think Wesley Snipes made like $100 million in his time. So Brett Favre does this Cameo thing. And we've talked about this Cameo thing. It's really interesting that you can go on. And most of them are just, they're like not even D and C list celebrities. Like some of them beneath me, which is like sad because I'm nothing. Right. And, but like you go on there and you can get Andy Dick for like $40 to do anything. Like for $40, Andy Dick will do anything you ask him to do. He'll be like, that's crazy. Merry Christmas or whatever. So they get him to do this and he does stuff because you send him what you want. And by and large, most of them will tell you right there, I won't do this. I'm not going to hawk your product. I'm not going to, like, I'll pimp your website. Go check out such and such. But I'm not going to do any, like, I only wear this or this is the only thing I drink or blah, 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 blah. So he does this. You send him the little thing you want him to say. It's just like, if you order flowers, right? You write on there what it is. And he says it unbeknownst to him, what he says is anti-Semitic, and, he's got some egg on his face. But I know he didn't do it on purpose. It's not like he knew. He's like, oh, yeah, I don't like the Jews. No, that's not Brett Favre.
Now, Favre is taking to Facebook to apologize, writing, I received a request to record a shout-out supporting what appeared to be a U.S. veterans organization. A few days later, I was distressed to learn that the request came from an anti-Semitic group that reposted with comments implying that I endorsed their mission. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah. Do you feel like if you get to that point where, like, this is what you're doing, and it's you go on there and you're getting $500 to say, hey, happy birthday, so-and-so, right? You do one or two of those a day, you're making $1,000 a day. It's better than 99.9% of the people in the world. But judging where you have been and where you're coming from, isn't it one of those things where you think to yourself, not if you're Andy Dick, but if you're other people, like, man, how far have I fallen? Because I feel like that's a how far have I fallen kind of thing. That's just me. Maybe I'm a jerk, but I kind of feel like that's where I would be. Like, somebody's going to pay me $100 to do this. It's not like back in the 80s when, like, people don't realize we look now like stars hawking, like, perfume or drinks or whatever. You didn't do that in the 60s, 70s and stuff. Like, movie stars didn't do those kind of things. But every once in a while they go to Japan because Japan would pay them ridiculous amounts of money. Ridiculous amounts of money. Like, just insane amounts of money to come over and to say just ridiculous things about their, like, whatever it was. There is I think I posted a few months ago, there's a commercial of Charles Bronson. I don't know what he got, probably $1 million or $2 million. It's like the late 60s, early 70s. Right. And it's a Japanese commercial, and it has to be like it's a 3-minute commercial. And the entire time he's just sitting in the room with like one of those, like the geisha, like kimono things. And then most of the time his shirt's off and he's pitching something. And I'm like, he probably got $1 million or $2 million for that. So nowadays it's no big deal. But if you came from somewhere and then this is where you got to, you probably think to yourself, I've fallen a bit. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at me. Love hearing from you. A lot of stuff we talked about. You can check it out on Facebook. Grab our podcast as well. Tweet at us. 323-538-2423. It is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
He kept us flying high and challenged us to fly higher still. And he did it with modesty and kindness that would have been surprising in someone 1/10 as tough and accomplished as he was.
Mitch McConnell there, just talking about Bush 41. Of course, he's laying in state, and then tomorrow there'll be another ceremony, and then he'll be laid to rest on Thursday. And it's interesting to watch this whole thing play out, and the way that it's playing out. For a lot of people, it's about, for them, this is a way to look at Trump and say, this guy, we didn't like him either, but we respected him. This guy was a better human being than you'll ever be. This guy is not you. And even though we couldn't stand him when he was alive and his politics, especially when he was president, he was a good dude after that. This guy, he's way better than you. He is way better than you. Trump has been, Trump has been just, when it came to all of this stuff, when it came to the way this thing went down and everything, Trump has stepped up, and the White House has stepped up across the board as far as the way that they're honoring HW, and I think that's been good.
This plane that is there to take the former president to Washington was actually the plane the president was using late last week for his trip to Argentina. The plane itself turned around after returning to Joint Base Andrews early on Sunday and flew then to Texas, landing yesterday afternoon. The president said he wanted to do this as a final honor for the 41st president.
Yeah, and he says it's the least that he could do, and he's gone above and aboard, and the Bush family has said, you know what, they've been great, they've been amazing, they've been awesome, they've done everything they said they were going to do, and then some, and I think it's a good thing, and I get why people don't like Trump, I do, and yesterday I don't want to say I was arguing with people, but when I said that there was pre-internet and post-internet presidencies, I don't think people understand. You know, I talked to a guy that was on the beat. It was a few years ago. He worked he was in the White House press corps back in the day when there really wasn't the kind of thing that we see now with Kennedy. And they all knew what was going on. They all knew the things that were happening. They kept it quiet. Could you imagine that today? I mean, the fact is that TMZ, for all intents and purposes, is the most trusted name in news. It's not CNN. It's not Fox. It's not MSNBC. If I want truth and it's coming out, I can pretty much damn know if it came out of TMZ, chances are it's probably true, right? We've changed. We, as a nation, have changed completely. We've changed a lot of things. We really have. And so there is a post-internet and a pre-internet. It was a baby when Bush was finishing up. When Clinton took over, it was just an infant. Couldn't even crawl. Message boards were it. Did you ever go to message board, Producer Phil? Yeah, see? That was there was social media like that. No. So pre and post internet are totally different worlds. You mean to tell me that if George Washington, the first president, could you imagine the vitriol that would have come back in the day? In the 200 and some characters we get, except it would have all been like that feathery pen kind of thing. Could you imagine that? It would have been a super font. Hello, look at me. Right? Could you imagine Lincoln, right? Or any of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, with all of his salaciousness, the things that he did, going to France, doing all those kinds of things. What? Could you imagine? So pre and post is real. Obama felt it, but he got a good pass because he's a Democrat, I think is a big reason. He got a bit of a pass. But Trump uses it, and it gets used against him. It's not an excuse. I think he needs to do better. I think he needs to be above. I think he's got thin skin. I don't care what people say. But I also think no matter how thick your skin is, eventually it wears down over time because knowing that you get just obliterated for anything you do because we live in a world now where we just feel we have the right to say anything. My thing has always been just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Like you can wear that outfit doesn't mean you should. You can get in that doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean you should. You can say stuff, doesn't mean you should. But we don't care anymore. We don't care anymore. We say what we want to say, and we don't care because there's no consequences. Right? As far as just being... So if you want to go out there today and say horrific things about the president, minus saying you want to kill him, you can say all those things. If you want to go out there today and say horrible things about just about anything, right? The run-of-the-mill thing. You want to be entertained? Don't read an article. Look at an article, whatever the article is, right? Like, go and it could have some big giant, like, hey, you know, the giant bold font, and it says something that's eye catching, right? It's all clickbait, and you don't even read the article. Go read the comments. See what people say. We live in a negative time. We do, and watching the press fawn over a guy that, quite frankly, I don't think they were really thrilled with. I don't think they were really thrilled with Bush. You know, they saw him kind of as a, you know, especially him and his son, as a bit of a warmongers. You know, you've heard the things that people have said about him. I don't think that they were all that in a bag of chips towards him, right? I think they were a little fairer, but compared to what they've got now, you see it coming out, right?
That said, I can't help but wonder if there was a thought bubble over Donald Trump's head just now, what he was thinking as he stood there. I
have to imagine he was thinking, how much longer do I have to stand here?
It's he had to be there. He did it. And then he saluted.
All told about a minute and 15 seconds.
It was somewhat theatrical.
How long did you expect him to stay there? Right? Again, I'm no fan of Trump and the way he acts, but I'm not a fan of this. How long did you expect Trump to stand in front of a casket? He should have been there for 4 hours, right? This isn't North Korea where people are crying in the streets and the person who cries the most gets some sort of special communist award. What did you expect him to do? The things that the White House has extended to the Bush family in honor of a man who served our country for decades in a way that I think it was incredible. But what did you expect Trump to do? I've not quite figured that out. But that's the world we live in. You have to say something crazy to get anybody to notice you. You can no longer say, I thought what he did was very respectful, and I thought the way he handled this is very respectful. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. They want the fighting. We want reality TV. We want to see people screaming and yelling. We want to see two girls fight in a bikini and a boob pop out. We want to see people put in awkward positions. We want all of those things. We do. We want all of those things. That's who we've become. Right there. That's who we've become. We have become that. We want it. That's what we have become. And that's on us as much as anything else. For all of the stuff of blaming our leaders of being tribal, you're tribal and you're tribal and you've caused us to be this way. The fact is they've not done anything that we didn't want to do ourselves in a lot of ways. We did it to ourselves. We did, right? We did it to ourselves. We've allowed ourselves to be this way. But I sit here and laugh at this. Like, oh, it's theatrical. It's almost laughable. Look at him. He stood there for only a minute 15. We timed it. Then he saluted and looked stupid. He's goofy. He's horrible. He's an awful person. He's horrible. He should have stayed there for 6 days. He should have been like the dog Sully. How about Sully? That's pretty cool, though, right? Right? Just a smidge cool. Little dog traveling with him. And apparently he wasn't allowed to be in a situation, but because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, he's allowed to go somewhere. And oddly enough, it was Bush who signed the Americans with Disability Act that allows Sully to travel or do something with him. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, your Twitter. Here's something funny. That dog has flown in way better airplanes than all of us. Think about that. Think about all of the human beings and the power of those human beings that have come pet that dog. Oh, how you doing there? World leaders, movie and TV stars, banking and titans of industries. Yeah, they've all come over and said, pet you. Oh, yeah. Think about that. I got to fly later. I'm going to be stuffed into a sardine can with a bunch of commoners. Chad, you're a jerk. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. A lot of stuff still to get to. We're going to touch on the Mueller stuff. Immigration stuff still going on. Climate change. This was very interesting. They had a climate town hall yesterday. And the interesting thing was the usual stuff, right, that's going on. And when they talk about climate change, by the way, when we talk about that, let's not forget something I'm going to point out to you guys about what's going on in France when it comes to climate change and the riots that are happening there. And the laugh I always have about, well, it totally should be done, but 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Butcher Box. I like it. No. I love it. No. I crave it. No. I need it. What is Butcher Box, you ask? It is a treasure trove of meat that shows up at your door, like the meat fairy shows up. Bing, bing, and you open it up, and there it is, sitting there. And you're looking around going, but where? Where did you go, Meat Claus? Meat Claus! Meat Claus is gone. And what does Meat Claus leave you? Meat. Lots of it. Less than $6 a meal, a month's worth of meat that you cannot believe the taste. Oh, grass-fed, grass-finished. The beef is amazing. Sirloin, filet. What was your favorite, Producer Phil? What was your favorite thing out of your butcher box? Oh, God, those are amazing. I had the pork chops, and I was telling people the other day, first of all, the pork chops you get with this, because it's like real, it's not the other white meat. It's like the way that they raise them, first of all humanely raised. Secondly, it's like meant to keep the fat and the flavor, and you could cut it with a spoon. Because I like pork chops, but if pork chops aren't really perfect, and it's hard to find perfect until you got this, it's incredible. And the other thing I was noticing, and I was telling people, and people, like, I gave some to some people to try. They were like, dude, you cook it, and it's like the same size as when you start to cook. That's what's amazing. Cuts, premium meats. You're not going to find this anywhere else. Less than $6 a meal. And here's a great thing. For limited time, this is what ButcherBox is doing for my listeners. $40 off when you sign up at ButcherBox.com. It's very affordable. It's very inexpensive. It's a perfect Christmas present. Go to ButcherBox.com/Chad. You get $20 off your first box, $20 off your second box. And to sweeten the deal, you're going to throw in some bacon. And bacon is just, well, it's incredible. There's no shaking your bacon unless your bacon is shaken. So jump on this now. $40 off. Go to ButcherBox.com/Chad. ButcherBox.com/Chad. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
Because the modus operandi of the special counsel is to get as many people as possible to commit perjury or to lie and then squeeze them and use pressure on them to have them testify against the major targets of the investigation. And what Judge Ellis said appropriately is the risk of that is not only will some people sing, but they will compose, they will elaborate, they will tell the story even better because they know that the better the story, the better the deal.
And that's something we've talked about. That right there is Dershowitz. And when he's talking about composing, that a lot of times when you know, the first person in gets the best deal and usually the only deal. So, but in this situation where, because it's so vast, you have to have several people that you're trying to cut deals with. And what happens a lot of times, and prosecutors will say this as well, defense attorneys, is you go in and to make your handler, if you will, the person that you're talking to and giving all this information up, you know, and for the like Cohens and the Manaforts, to make Mueller happy, that maybe you will make things seem bigger and or put yourself in positions, maybe you know a story, but instead of saying, well, I heard, it's more of, I was there. You want to make that person happy. And that's where prosecutors say, you know, that sounds great. Defense attorneys, they say, look, it's easy to pick apart. Second year, you know, student in law school is going to be able to and tear things apart. The whole thing is, remember what this started out to be, right? Remember that. For all the stuff that Dershowitz said last week and people jumped all over it because they didn't listen to the entire thing they took it out of context. They didn't listen to the entire soundbite of how devastating this could be for Trump. Remember what all of this was supposed to be.
The special counsel was supposed to find crimes that already occurred before he became special counsel. That was his mandate, to find crimes relating to Russia. As far as we know, he hasn't found very many of those. What he's done is to help create crimes. That is, he's given people an opportunity to lie. Now, it's their fault if they lie. But these are all crimes that have occurred after he became special prosecutor. That wasn't his mandate. And the other crimes, most of the ones that he found before, are financial crimes like with Manafort, utterly unrelated to his mandate.
And that's what we've talked about. That's the thing that we've talked about. These things are unrelated in a lot of ways to any of the stuff that they're looking at. So what does that have to do with anything? Right? It doesn't. It has zero to do with anything. You breaking the law that has nothing to do with what they're looking at still is you breaking the law. But that's not why we were sent here, right? That's not. Now, we're still going to prosecute you on these things. But now if we can twist it a little bit, if we can pull it a little bit, if we can use it, then we'll do that. And I'm interested to see what takes place. I really am. When all is said and done, how does this look? I still think it'll be an ugly look for the president, but I don't think it's going to be any criminality. I could be wrong. There could be criminality, and it might not even be the president. Could be his family members. But if you catch them on perjury because they lied, is that really enough to impeach? Probably not. You're really reaching there, especially in this day and age. You really are. So we'll see. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. So they had a big town hall last night. All of the usual suspects were there. Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez were there. We're going to talk about it. It was a climate change town hall. We're also going to talk about what's going on in France. 323-538-2423. It is the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thought and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Governments around the world must take rapid action to curb rising temperatures, or else millions around the world face future disaster.
A record-breaking heat wave, and things just keep getting worse.
Wildfires rage as far north as the Arctic Circle. A suffocating severe heat wave.
Things like tornadoes, which you normally don't get.
At least 24 deaths have been blamed on the storm.
Record rainfall is devastating entire communities.
My neighbor called me up and he was like, the fire's at the edge of our community. And he said, I'm going to go out there right now with some shovels and a hose to try and put fires out.
Yeah, so big, it's a movie, you got to listen to that. World's coming to an end. I was explaining to somebody yesterday, we were arguing back and forth. You're a climate denier, because that's always that's what people do to shut you up. Because they don't want to have an honest conversation about climate change and why certain people on the right are not a fan of the way that this thing is being approached. And I'm one of those. I can look and say, we've had an impact. Of course. We'd be foolish not to say we've had some sort of impact. There's 7 billion of us. Of course there's some sort of impact. How much is that impact, and how much do you want to give up? Right now what's going on in France is riots. The yellow vests, you've seen them. It's insane. Why is that? And this is what's hilarious. So we got out of the France Accords, right? And Macron, the president, he's like, look, we've got to fight climate change because it's coming and it's going to destroy the world and kill us all. So we're going to put on taxes, carbon taxes to pay for all this stuff. It's important to stop climate change. And people are screaming, climate change is going to destroy us. And then the bill comes and like, well, I don't want to pay it. Isn't that everything? Right? Isn't that everything? Oh, I don't want to pay it. It all sounds good till it affects you, right? It's that old thing. It's like, well, how does this affect me? Well, it doesn't. Well, then, okay, go ahead and do it, right? Go ahead and do it. Everybody wants a free lunch, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. Zero, zilch, nada. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And that's the issue, right? It's about control. It is, to me, it's always been about control. Who can control what? You've got two industries that are battling. Take away the impact on the climate. Let's look at the industries that are battling. One is old, stodgy old white men in suspenders going, we got to destroy everything because we need to get ourselves oil, right? Like, because I figure that's what they sound like, because we got to make them sound like Texan-y. And the other ones are like, they talk like this NPR, and they're green, and it's nice, and it's soft, and it's cuddly, and you're hugging a polar bear, right? Who then the polar bear kills you, and you're like, oh, my God, that was a horrible idea. He doesn't give you a Diet Coke, by the way. Don't try that. He didn't give me a Diet Coke. He didn't give me a Diet Coke. It's industries. They're both industries. They're both industries. And one of these industries has kind, touchy feelings behind it. I think I want to get off fossil fuels. I want to find better, long-lasting, more environmentally friendly, more fuel-efficient ways to maneuver, get around. I'm still not riding a scooter. Not going to do it. Don't even ask me. I want to find those things. Got no problem with it. And I think I think as human beings, we have definitely paid a, we've played a part in this. How much? I still think we don't give Mother Earth all the credit that Mother Earth deserves and what Mother Earth can withstand. And when she's done with us, she'll kick us off. But that's for another time. But let's take away the argument of we're here to save the polar bears and the world's coming to an end. Baloney. Right? Because that's the thing you say when you want to evoke motion out of people. Let's look at it from industries for a second. You've got big oil, big fossil fuels versus big green. Big green's trying to become an industry, and we're not talking about we don't wanna. We're talking about big green. And that's something to think about. So last night, you had Bernie Sanders. Oh, there I am. Climate change. It's been this way. When I was 4 years old and I look just like I did now, guess what happened? Climate change started. I tried to stop it. It didn't happen. Blah, 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 blah. And then you had Ocasio-Cortez doing their thing.
If Donald Trump and the fossil fuel industry wins this debate, tell us what the planet looks like in 20 or 30 years.
We really start seeing things happen after about 2030. We may be unleashing a destabilization of the West Antarctic ice sheet, which could cause massive sea level rise. Many places would be inundated if that dire consequence
It means
happened.
communities where millions of people live will be underwater. And in terms of national security issues, it means mass migrations of people.
Yeah. Maybe. Because we don't know. Our models, people say, oh, Chad, you're talking about models again. You don't understand. They plan for everything. First of all, that's if the data is correct. There was a big modeling data that was done and released 3 weeks ago, and the Washington Post, people tore it apart. People that weren't even scientists, they had to retract and say the modeling was wrong, and that was a huge deal. Data's got to be correct. There are also tons of things you can't. You think you've plugged everything in, but you don't know. But he said something, the fossil fuel industry. Because there's a green industry, right? It's solar panels, it's electric cars, it's all of those things. That industry is becoming big too. And right now, it's more important not to have a better product, not to have something that like, hey, if I put this up against something else, it is better. The better thing to do is you go where power is. Where is power? It's in D.C. What do? You court power. Why? Because you're coming into an industry that you want to play in as well. So what's the best thing to do? Cozy up with those people that can make it difficult on other people that we're going up against.
If we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and we move to wind and solar and other sustainable energy, what they are telling us is going to be a disaster for the economy. Is President Trump right? That's a hard one. I want you to think about it before you respond. Or is there, in fact, ideas out there that would enable us to create millions of good-paying jobs?
It's unsurprising that the response to any bold proposal that we have is to incite fear.
Which makes us laugh because we just listened to a thing that says the world's coming to an end. Right? Fear's okay on that side. Look, both sides are using fear because they know that's the emotion that's going to get you to do something. If we went to wind and solar overnight and that was all that we had, we'd have issues. We would. We would have issues. That's the reality of it. Technology will improve exponentially in the coming years and decades to the point where fossil fuels will be an afterthought, which will be great. The only people who have fossil fuels, some of us will still have an old truck or an old car and some of those kind of things, but we'll be running on better things. That's going to happen. Right? It is. My issue is, like the UN came out the other day and talked about how we need to change society, we need to change the economics, and that's what's going to help with global warming. No, wrong. You want control over stuff like industries and nations. Carbon tax are basically pity taxes. We're going to give poor emerging nations who want to be middle class and come out of poverty, here's some money, don't compete with us. We like the fact that you guys are cheap labor. There's a lot that goes into this. There is. Now, Cortez has to make sure that everything at some point in time turns to be more about whatever they were supposed to be talking about, and well, less of that, actually, and more about her.
The only way we are going to get out of this situation is by choosing to be courageous. First of all, it's just plain wrong. The idea that we're going to somehow lose economic activity, it's not just possible that we will create jobs and economic activity by transitioning to renewable energy, but it's inevitable. And it's inevitable that we can use the transition to 100% renewable energy as the vehicle to truly deliver and establish economic, social, and racial justice in the United States of America.
Okay. She's just something else. She is. And you know what? She's at the point, too, where even Saturday Night Live is like, we got to take shots at her. You know, what did she say the other day? Did you see that, producer Phil, where she said that voting her in was akin to putting a man on the moon? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you're in a place where there's 250,000 registered Democrats. In the primary, you got 25,000 to vote for you. And somebody said they could have run an ostrich as a Democrat, and it would have won. And that's what you're comparing it to? Come on, but listen, this is this is SNL mocking her.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you, Joe, Mika. Look at me. I'm different.
Congratulations on your election victory.
Yeah, wow, incredible. You're only 29. You've overcome incredible odds to get a job in Congress.
Well, I'm a millennial, so getting any full-time job is overcoming incredible odds. I worked as a bartender in a Mexican restaurant like 11 minutes ago. This job is a frickin' breeze. We get Saturday and Sunday off. I can sit down whenever I want. Changing America's healthcare system is gonna be nada.
It is so, oh, God. But this is the debate we're going to have with climate change. And for me, I think the debate should be how do we make fossil fuels go away in a way that is slow but realistic, and swap them out for real trade-offs and solutions that are things that we can live with, that are better for the environment, that are also something that are reliable, right? And that's the other thing. We got to think about it. We want reliability. So we know that when we go to turn our lights on, they're there. We know when we go to do these things that it's there. Drive our cars, we know that. I think we'll get there, but the reality is it's not going to happen tomorrow. And us yelling at each other doesn't sort this thing out. It doesn't do any of that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. We're following along as well with what's going on with the Mueller investigations, as it looks like it is slowly but surely coming to some sort of end. What is it going to look like when all is said and done? Of course, you've got the people on the right are like, it's all a witch hunt. It's a bunch of crap. You got people on the left saying, well, now we've got all kinds of new crimes.
But what we're seeing, though, and for the last year and a half, what's been so maddening is the president has tried to use tampering, obstruction, and lying as both a shield and a sword. As a shield, because his witnesses are able to protect him from the Mueller probe and congressional probes, and as a sword because lying, tampering, and obstructing delays the Mueller proceedings. And so the president uses those delays to suggest that the probe is unlawful and to try and undermine it. And those, both that shield and sword, I think are melting.
Yeah, I don't think they're melting. I think it is what it is. It's going to come to an end, hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't think we'll get any kind of final word or report because once they're done with the investigation, it should be wrapping up. From there, it is on to putting the report together. I don't know if we're going to see too many more indictments. I think there's a few other characters they're going to be looking at, but not many. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. My Pillow is awesome. Your pillow would be too if you got a My Pillow. And right now, first of all, You want a good night's sleep? Yeah, you do. You want to give a good night's sleep? Yeah, you do. You want a great Christmas present that you can buy for yourself but then give to somebody else but still have something for you? That's what MyPillow's all about. That's what they're doing. Change the way you sleep forever. You know you got friends and family who struggle with it. MyPillow's the way to go. Made right here in the USA. Backed by a warranty right now. Money back warranty till March 2019. That is incredible. Machine washable and dryable. Boom. Made in the US of A. Now, this is what you're going to get. 4 pillows. 4 pillows. 4. 2 premium pillows. 2 go anywhere pillows. Half the price. Free shipping. And again, money back guarantee until March 1st, 2019. You're not going to find a deal like this anywhere else. How do you get it? Call 800-983-4975 or go to MyPillow.com. When you do, use that promo code Benson. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code is Benson. Or call 800-983-4975. MyPillow.com. Use promo code Benson. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Welcome to the Alt Middle, where solutions live and ignorance dies. The Chad Benson Show.
According to Tesla, there are 6 intentional steps to activate that autopilot. Now, it's not designed for anything other than highway use, so it's not like you can get into the car, punch in the coordinates, and then pass out and hope to end up where you want to go.
Yeah. So, police in California arrested a guy Friday. So, he's 45 years old. And apparently he was hammered. He was drunk, and he was passed out behind the wheel. And this, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, it's unclear if the car was on autopilot mode, they said, but it believed to be on autopilot. And it's interesting because you can't be behind the wheel, but he really wasn't driving, but you were in a car that was started. And this is some of that technology and law that's going forward. The fact is as we move forward and people get these cars that are on autopilot, your computer/car will drive you home. So should you be allowed to, how should we say this, have some beverages of the adult nature and get into your car? Or do you have to be in the back seat? Now, the technology is still, it's still suspect for a lot of people out there. I get that. They said when officers pulled up next to the car, they allegedly saw Samek asleep, but the car was moving straight, leading them to believe it was on autopilot mode. Officers slowed down the car after running a traffic brake with an officer behind. They turned on the lights. He said another officer drove a car directly in front of him and gradually slowing down, prompting the Tesla to slow down because it knows it's on autopilot, so it's going to do that. And then, it was 7 miles from where it was, and they said, hey, dude, you're drunk, and you can't do this. Then I thought to myself, man, isn't that what that's all about, though? Like the autopilot side of things, that's where we're going. Like we got autopilot, man. It's going to be fun. Not that fun, though. Not that fun for that guy. He's going to be arrested. And that's weird because you go to court and people are going to say you drove drunk. He's like, well, not really. I didn't do it. The car did. Like, what if his friends got in there like this? Like, oh, he's drunk. We'll put him in the car and we'll type in his home and then we'll send him home. What if they did that? They're like, I didn't, sir. I was going to call, and I drank too much, but I didn't do it. There's so many steps. I couldn't have done it that drunk. What do you say to the court? I pushed. I was like this, and I'm pushing the buttons, and I'm pushing. I'm trying. Never mind. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. People are texting in about the whole climate change thing. And I was, like I was saying, I want to get us to a point where, look, we look at this in a much more rational way, where we come together and talk about climate change without having to demonize and yell at each other. But I do find it funny that they're rioting in France because nobody wants to pay for the cost of doing the things that's going to help us move into the future, quote unquote, from people, who are all about climate change. Nobody wants to pay for it. They put a tax out there. Nobody wants to pay for it. Everybody wants that free meal. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. It's Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. independent in thoughts, and punk rock in life. It's The Chad Benson Show.
People are lined up. They've been waiting for hours to make their way inside the Capitol Rotunda to pay their respects to former President George H.W. Bush. President Trump and First Lady were among the thousands who made their way inside to say a final goodbye to Bush 41.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, actually, to see all the people there. I spoke to Congressman last night, and he just said, he met him once. It was just an amazing man, an incredible, generous man who was you could tell that there was something about him. And but the more that I watch the news, it's not about Bush 41. Because many of the same people that are fawning over him couldn't stand him when he was president, couldn't stand his son when he was president, and they're just taking every opportunity to go, well, I didn't like them, but compared to this guy, they're great people. They're great human beings. They're amazing.
Shortly after word of Bush's death, the president abruptly called off his planned solo press conference, tweeting, "I was very much looking forward to having a press conference just prior to leaving Argentina because we have had such great success. We will wait until after the funeral." The president says the decision was made out of respect for the Bush family, a gesture that follows more than 2 years of relentless attacks.
We'll be sending Air Force One, which is a special tribute that he deserves very much, and it's my honor.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Bush wants him at the funeral. He called him, I think he called him a blackguard or a buffoon or something like that. But Bush wants him there. That was kind of one of his things, is he wanted Trump there. And I think not having Trump there the McCain thing, okay, senator, war hero, they had their issues, obviously, but not having Trump there, that would have been so awkward. It really, really, really would have been extremely awkward. He had to be there, and it's one of those things where it's good to see that he's going there, and having him send Air Force One to get him, I think it was the right thing to do. But a lot of the questions, because as we all know, tomorrow, is it all of government, producer? I don't know I think it's all of government. All of federal government is closed tomorrow, including the post office, except for some important things. And people are asking the very, very interesting question is why?
Why we are spending so much time on this funeral as a nation, because we have to remember the president is, of course, not only the head of government but also the head of state. So this is the closest thing we have to a national sovereign who's being buried. And so it's really a moment where the nation should be coming together to think about the things that unify us rather than divide us.
Yeah, and I get that. It's interesting. It is interesting, though, that the post office, everything is shutting down. We're all going to work. I'll be here tomorrow. Producer Phil will be here. You'll be there listening, and we'll be doing our thing. But I get it. It's very interesting to see the way that this is playing itself out. And the more that you listen to the commentators, the more that you listen to people talk about stuff, the more that you start to realize that, first of all, we live in a different world and a different time. Let's be honest about that, right? Bush, I call it, pre-internet, post-internet, because it is a different world. And while there was internet, the social media has changed everything. And, when I was talking to somebody yesterday, well, Clinton had this, Lewinsky, they survived their scandals. I said they survived their scandals in their day without the scrutiny of 24/7 news the way it is now, and 24/7 criticism from the People's News Network, which is us on social media. I mean, I posted a picture of him at Rest in Peace, I think it was on Friday night, and I got just as much good riddance to him as I did rest in peace from people. Because people inherently can't stop bitching. That's what social media has given us. The opportunity to not be cordial anymore, but to bitch 24/7, to throw a fit whenever we want, to be able to say anything we would never say to anybody else's face. But we feel that we have the anonymity to do it. And so when I look at Trump and Bush, Bush did live his life in a much different way. The way that he went about it. I mean, he was married to his wife for 73 years. He fought he was in combat. right? In World War II. I mean, this guy who had an amazing life. Public service was his life, not public interest in himself, which is a lot of what people think Trump is about. And yeah, rightly so. I get that, right? Trump is due all those criticisms. But I also want to point out in this day and age, the criticisms that Trump gets and that all politicians get nowadays is just ridiculous. It is insane. It really is. In fact, here's a story for you, and talk about and we've talked about this. We've talked about this. I talked to Congressman Schweikert last night, and he and I were talking. He says that he's got a bill that he and a Democrat put together, and it's a tech bill, and it's a bipartisan, should be non-political tech bill, right? Like this, we're not talking about this isn't choice or gun control. This is a tech bill that is a kind of a bipartisan, two guys that are friends put this thing together. They put this thing, it's not even a social media bill, right? It's like it is a tech bill. He puts it together. They've got everything ready to roll, and it's bipartisan too, Republican, Democrat. And this is the world that we live in now. Think about where Bush came from, where Trump is today, when all the criticisms come in. And he says, the Democrat tells him, I can't have my name on the bill. And he's like, why? He goes, because if my name's on the bill and they see that I'm working with you, I'll get destroyed. My base will destroy me. And social media, I can't do it. What? Are you kidding me? And that's part of the problem, I think, today. When we say, why can't our politicians work together? Why can't they be in a situation where you see them coming together? It's because many people outside on both sides won't allow that to happen. Won't. And we talk about Bush and you know, we took it 41. We talk about he reached across the aisle. He was all of these things. Reagan. I always challenge you. In those days, you could do it in a way that I don't think you could do it today. I don't. Doesn't mean that Trump doesn't deserve a lot of the criticism he gets, but I always want to say, when I watch the media tear apart Trump right now because of his attitude and his fight with the media and the way that he acts, most of it is well warranted, but there's a caveat that gets thrown in there. When we compare him to other past presidents, remember what he's went through, and to a certain extent Obama, not really Bush, definitely not Clinton. I mean, Hillary's went through more hell on social media than Bill ever did. So let's remember that.
To let you know, the president and the first lady are walking in. Let's just listen in on this.
You know, he's not one to mend fences too readily. I think he's doing this because he feels he has to do it. And I'm also assuming that General Kelly has had a big hand in it. I do know from the Bush family that they are very appreciative and think the White House has just bent over backwards, gone to great lengths, been extraordinarily helpful.
You know, and I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have. You know, Trump is a lot of things, and, you know, because of the day and age that we live in, and I could do a lot more. I turn down opportunities. I don't want to go on a television show for 3 or 4 minutes and scream some ridiculous things. That's not who I am, right? I'm funny, right? I'm a pragmatist. I'm a person. People say you're a moderate. I'm not a moderate. I take my stand. But it's just not the same stand that's extreme on every single, I don't go one way or the other extreme. And that's what you need to do nowadays. You need to do that. And I think that's part of the issue is I think we've become so desensitized in this world that unless we're extreme, people don't pay attention. Right? It's no longer you can cry wolf and people run over. Now you have to cry, it's a wolf that has a gun, that is a radical Islam or white supremacist, that is full of hate, that hates the LGBT community. You have to go to extremes to get noticed. And that's the sad thing. That is. And when you look at somebody like Bush, where as they laid him to rest, think about what Trump will be like in 15, 20 years or whenever he ends up passing. God forbid, it's no time soon. What is that going to look like? What is that going to look like? How is he going to be remembered? It's going to be very interesting. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. A lot of stuff to get to. This story, I found this to be interesting. It's changed subjects for a quick second. The fact that they had these bizarre rules over a snowball fight. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but they finally decided, maybe this is a dumb rule. Because, Phil, I didn't grow up in snow. You've grown up in snow. You're pretty much most of your life, right? You've never lived like a place like where I've lived, where like snow is like something we'd see in a movie or a book.
No, I've always lived where there was snow.
That sounds so miserable. Now, when it snowed, were you allowed to have snowball fights?
Oh, yeah, we were. We did it all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the, okay, like the bad thing is it's snowing outside and it's snowing and it's cold and you got to wear this kind. The good thing is you got snowball fights. That's part of the fun. Well, finally, an antiquated 9-year-old kid does away with his snowball ban because he finds it to be stupid.
The ban on snowball fights in the town of Severance, Colorado, that had been around for close to a century, has been overturned, thanks in part to 9-year-old Dane Best.
I call this regular meeting to order.
Who convinced the town leaders Monday night that the ban was outdated. Best got to present his arguments at the town board meeting and had classmates write letters. Board members voted unanimously to put the ban on ice.
Sounds like you just changed the law, buddy.
Dane's brother Dax will have to look out. Seems he will be Dane's first snowball victim.
Yeah, you know what he's doing next, right? Prostitution. So let's that Dane kid's doing some stuff. Chad, stop it! You're being a jerk. But I just found it to be interesting because my whole when I read this, I'm like, God, that to me is more interesting than any of the other stuff that's going on today. It's like, isn't that the whole point? If you live somewhere it's snowy, that you should be able to sled, and you should be able to throw snowballs at each other. Like, that's why you live there, right? You live in Buffalo because it snows a lot and it's cheap and you can throw snowballs at each other. You live where you live, Phil, where it's not cheap, but the snow comes and you should be able to wind up a snowball and peg somebody in the face. That's part of the fun. Good God. In Colorado, I think that's like you come out of the womb throwing a snowball. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. Love hearing from you. AMAC, amazing. Incredible. Open enrollment's going on right now. They want to help you with that. They've partnered with Senior Resource Network. It's available for you to become a partner with them for free for a year. You can become a member, right? And along with that, you can work with Senior Resource Network, which will help you navigate through all of those important decisions when it comes to Medicare open enrollment and things like that. On top of that, AMAC gives you incredible things like retail, restaurant, hotel discounts that are so amazing. 40% off movie tickets, retail discounts across the board. They got travel discounts. They have everything you can think of. And if you're going to an amusement park, make sure you take your AMAC card because you're going to get big discounts there. AMAC.us/Chad. It is amazing the things that they do. And a lot of people said, well, why them? I said, well, they're the alternative. ARP is different. If you go to like certain websites, you can see the kind of money that ARP gives, and they give to a lot of left-leaning and uber-liberal organizations and people. AMAC is more conservative. They look at this. We're the conservative alternative. If you don't want your money going elsewhere, you don't have to worry about your money going to AMAC because they're not going to ask you for any. Give AMAC a try. A year membership free, doesn't cost you a thing, and you're going to find out the results and the things that you get are amazing. Go to amac.us/Chad, amac.us/Chad, amac.us/Chad. 1 year free. It's on me. amac.us/Chad. AMAC is better for you, better for America. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, CHADBENSON. It's the Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
In China, there's clearly an interest in continuing to negotiate with the United States. They've made that very clear from the beginning.
Yeah, they have made it very clear. So China is like, here's the thing with China. Their economy it's not motoring like it was. There's a bit of a slowdown. Trump is kind of getting to the point where he's starting to push things, and it's making them uncomfortable. And sometimes you got to be uncomfortable. And for all of remember, we're a consumer-based nation. We're always going to have trade imbalances because we're going to consume far more then we're going to export. We like nom 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 nom. We're obese in that because we like buying stuff. Buying stuff, Chad, we do. It's what we do. Stuff's cheap. Comes here, we buy it. You know that. So that's going to happen, right? That is going to happen. I think Trump's trying to get a fairer deal, and the consistency with Trump, right? Like, take away all of the braggartness and the blowhard and the craziness and the fighting and the arguing and the salaciousness. If you go back and you even want to do something like that, you can go back to YouTube and look in the 80s archives, if you will, of Trump talking about trade and tariffs and all of these things. And you can also, you can literally see him talking back when he had a full half head of hair that was a different color, talking about these kind of things. So this has been something that's been around for a long time on him, and he's been very steadfast for this. And I think who knows what's going to end up happening with this. But definitely China is feeling a little bit, and I think that's a good thing, and that bodes well for Trump. But how's it going to look in the future? That's the question.
I'm taking President Xi at his word and his commitment to President Trump, but they have to deliver on this. So I think the president's been very clear that he expects to move forward with a real agreement, and he reserves his ability to do additional tariffs if we're not successful.
Yeah, so there we go. So we'll see. But when we consume, and that's something I always try to tell people, we are a consumer-based nation, and we like our goods cheap, right? And most of us are not exporting anything. And so we don't see the battle that goes on there, right? We just want to go to the store and say, hey, this thing cost $3.99 when it used to cost $5.99. I like it cheap. That's great. So I'm going to buy this. And that is the what people don't quite understand. But it's interesting. And the battle that's going to go on here economically, Trump has set this in his sights. And this is something that, I think he does know a lot about. And he's been very consistent throughout the years, not just as president. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. The Democrats, what do they have for 2020? Plus marijuana. Where do you hear this? Oh, man. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
There absolutely is a price to pay for pot. I spent my entire adult life in law enforcement, and a lot of it investigating traffickers of drugs. And it's not a minor nonviolent felony. It's ruining families and killing people every day across the United States.
No. Look, drug dealing and trafficking is a problem. I think we can all realize that. We're not stupid, right? We can all realize that drug trafficking in large amounts is. That's why when you legalize it and you make it above board, it takes away a lot of that stuff, and you have transparency in it. That is an issue. I'm not going to lie to you. It's very much an issue, right? And so you've got a guy here on Fox talking about, he's a cop, right? Talking about, I spent my life, it's destroying families. The violence that comes with the drug gang activity, that is. I don't deny that, right? I don't. But then he goes on to say this.
And we stand here in denial, thinking that it's not a gateway drug to drugs that's killing
you don't start
people.
on cocaine. You probably start with marijuana, and it leads to other things, right?
That's absolutely right.
Actually, you probably start with drinking. That's what you probably start with. You start smoking cigarettes, and you start drinking, and then you graduate. But you're on your way anyways. You're on your way anyways. And I have a lot of friends who still enjoy a bit of the wacky tobacco as they've gotten older, and they're all responsible adults. And I will tell you this, a couple of my friends, I would rather be around them when they are, how should we say this, a little bit high, as opposed to when they're a little bit drunk. Right? I would be. If you said to me, Chad, you have to get rid of one of these two, I'm getting rid of alcohol. Right? I'm getting rid of alcohol. But that's the kind of old thinking. It's like, well, let me tell you something. Where I come from, it's a gateway drug. I'm like, everybody I've ever known that has done, and if you're new to the show, I don't smoke. I've never even a cigarette in my life. I've never done a drug in my life. And here's the other thing. I've never even tasted alcohol, right? I'm a teetotaler, as they would say in the old Wild West. Don't want any of it. It's never interested me. I grew up around alcoholic parents, drug addict for a father who ended up dying. I wanted no part of any of that stuff. I saw what it did to my sister, but I'm not an idiot and I'm not a fool. And I think if you're a grown-ass human being and you want to enjoy yourself by going home and smoking a little weed, I got no problem with it, right? I don't care as long as you're not hurting anybody, I don't care what you do. This is always the argument I make with people who tell me, we'll talk about abortion, right? Because I'm a guy that is, look, it's not my choice, but I don't want to take away your choice. And people say, oh, this is what happens is everybody wants to make, they go around and they talk about, you want to take away somebody else's choice in their body. And I'm like, first of all, it's not me, but I understand when people say those kind of things. And I say, that's just wrong. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Government tells us all the time things we as human beings can't do to our body. But this narrative that somehow that marijuana is this evil, disgusting, vile thing that the minute you try it, you're just one step away from tying one off and shooting at heroin is ridiculous. It is. I find it to be absolutely absurd. And everybody I've ever known that smoked pot when we were younger and stuff, when we were kids, they started going to house parties where they were raiding mom and dad's cabinet of booze first. And let me tell you right now, I worry far more about them raiding mom and dad's cabinet in the medicine area than I do booze or smoking weed. I do. I think most of us go, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. Absolutely. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. So here we are. And we're not too far away from, I think yesterday, what's her name? Kamala Harris said she's going to make the decision over the holidays whether or not she's going to run. If you're at that point where you're going to make the decision, chances are you've already made the decision. You're just not going to announce it to probably the first of the year after the holidays, or maybe during that holiday period when it's quiet. And she said it's going to get nasty and ugly, but I still look out there and I look around and I say, well, what else did the Democrats have going into 2020? Because remember, it's not just even what your platform is, it's who's your personality. Because your platform may be great, but this is a cult of personality you're going up against.
Biden obviously is very well known. He knows pretty much everybody in the Democratic Party. He polls well in the national polls. Obviously, it's very early. But, if it's a really crowded field, maybe being Joe Biden would be a real benefit in terms of sort of breaking through and leading the pack.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm looking around going, so you're going to roll out Joe Biden. That's your thing. You're going to dust off old Uncle Joe there, and you're going to roll him out. You think that might. Then, of course, you have Bernie.
Now, people who supported Bernie Sanders because they wanted an alternative to Hillary Clinton aren't necessarily going to support him again. I think we're seeing him, in the national polls getting around 10, 11%, something like that. But it's not like he's 20, 30%. I think even some of the New Hampshire polling, the little that there's been, Biden has led there and not Sanders, even though he's from next door and he obviously won the primary last time around.
Yeah, and part of that, I think, too, is because you have this problem with the Democrats. Like the Republicans have their problem, and we've talked about it. We've mapped it out. You're either a party of Trump or you feel like you're discombobulated because you're not quite sure which way to go because those values you once stood for, those beliefs you once stood for, because you got in bed with Trump, those things are kind of gone now, right? Those family values, you could check that off, right? A lot of these things, no. So, and on top of that, you've alienated women, you've alienated people of color. You've done a lot of things that it's going to be tough. And in selling your soul in many ways to get with Trump, even though I like a lot of what Trump's policies have been, the fact is, if you look long term, and this is a long play, The people that really are that base that live for Trump, they're not following you once he's gone. Once he's gone, they came for him, they'll leave for him. On the Democratic side, you've got Biden. Feels like a moderate, right? Reach across the aisle. He's old school politics, but then you have the battle. Bernie started it. Now people are moving left of him, and this is where their battle becomes.
I feel like she's at the sweet spot of a whole lot of different trends that are going on inside the Democratic Party. She's a woman, obviously. She's a senator. I think she came to some prominence during the Kavanaugh hearings. She's an African American. And I think most importantly at this moment, she's new to the political scene. Most of the country hasn't seen her before. And I think Democrats, even though the polls will show that people like Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are atop the polls, that's because of name recognition. We've seen in the past that Democrats like to fall in love and they like to see someone new and fresh to the scene. And I think that person's Kamala Harris.
I don't know if that's true or not. The fact is, I think what a lot of people are looking at is, can Beto be that one for them? Because a lot of people think so. He did well in Texas, even though he lost. He's got a magnetic personality, which you need. They love his fundraising ability, which is a huge plus. They think he could reach the moderates, and he's not so progressive, because Kamala Harris she's one of those people that you look at her and you're like, those are California values. That same kind of stuff doesn't fly in flyover country, which you're going to need. That same stuff they're not worried in the Rust Belt about climate change the way you are. They're not worried in the Rust Belt about making sure that everybody can use everybody's bathroom. They're not worried like that. They have other things they're thinking about. And that's a lot, besides the fact that she was an awful candidate, that's a lot of what Hillary, because Hillary had that Manhattan kind of politics, right? That progressive kind of feel to her, even though she was far more moderate than people realize, that, that just doesn't fly. Where Trump can go there and he can say jobs and talk about certain things. But the question is, there's Trump. He's right in front of you. And in the personality side of things, Kamala Harris would be interesting because you got a woman and you got a woman of color. How does he approach that? But Trump is big. He is bad. He is bold. He is a lot of things, and he's going to have a track record. And depending on where we go, especially if he gets through this Mueller thing pretty much unscathed and the economy's still rolling strong, then what?
Can they beat Trump? That's the biggest thing. You can talk about all the other dynamics. Is this person electable? Is it possible to win? I think everything else sort of flows from that at this moment. And I think navigating what is likely to be a very crowded primary field, it's impossible to game plan in terms of, I think, different lanes of a moderate or a liberal or the progressive, age, gender, all of those things can cut in different ways. I think someone's going to need to catch fire. And I think the overriding issue is going to be, is this person positioned to lead the party in a way that wins?
That's just it. And can you, in so many ways, it's not just leading a party. It is fundraising, which is massive. It is bringing the party together right now. Because leading a party, if everybody's on the same page, is not as hard as trying to get everybody and wrangle them up. And that is the problem that they're going to have. Both sides of the aisle. Are after 4 years, is the shine going to wear off on Trump, especially if we struggle in the economy? I think the biggest fight that Trump's going to have, especially if he gets through this Mueller thing unscathed, is the economy going to be strong enough to continue to keep him as president? Or is that shine, that newness, if you will, worn off, and then everybody go, okay, we got what we wanted out of Trump. We got something different. He shook up the establishment, but it's time to make a move. That's going to be the thing that is interesting as we move forward in this. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter.
President Trump says on Twitter he will be visiting with the, quote, wonderful Bush family at the Blair House today, adding that former First Lady Laura Bush will go to the White House to get a tour of the Christmas decorations with the First Lady. The Bush family has been in close contact with the Trump White House for months as they prepared for the eventual funeral for Bush 41.
Yep. So earlier today, I saw Sully walking around. That's the dog. And tomorrow It is going to be a day of mourning. So I don't know if it's all federal agencies and stuff that are closed. I know the post office is going to be delivering. And then I think he goes back tomorrow to Houston for another funeral, and then he is finally laid to rest on Thursday. And it's a big thing. It is. I mean, this is the president who did a lot of stuff, vice president, former head of the CIA and president for 4 years, and got us through a war with Iraq. And it's a big thing here as they lay him to rest. And I think the way that Trump has gone about doing things, I think it's good. I think it's been good, despite the fact that he's had differences, despite the fact that he's been obnoxious at times towards the Bush family and the infighting amongst the two. I think what he's done here has been good. And other people are like, oh, it's horrible, it's theatrics. It's like, just shut up. Stop. Just always criticize. Always. You're that person that nothing is ever good enough for you. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love to hear from you, my friends. All right. So it is the holiday season. You're going to be shopping. And you're saying to yourself, how do I protect myself in the event that something may happen? What is the best thing for me to do? We will talk about hacking and the holiday season straight ahead. Chad Benson Show.
While pointless pundits ponder what was, Chad wisely wonders, what's next?
The reports by Experian, one of the top 3 credit reporting agencies, itself having been hacked in 2015. Chief Michael Bremer says next year, biometrics, the systems that allow employees to log into work from remote locations, could be hacked, plus gaming and cloud hacking. He says when shopping,
make it a low credit limit credit card or a throwaway card. Don't use your one that is connected to your bank account, let alone don't use a debit card.
Yeah, that's it's tough, right? Because you're out there shopping, you're doing all of these kind of things. And because we're so connected now, because we're so wired, because you hear every day somebody's hacked and it's 500 million, it's 100 million, it's 25 million. It's tough. You're using Wi-Fi, you're out and about, you're doing stuff, and the way that how sophisticated these criminals are, just know this, in some time in the future, if you haven't been, you will be eventually hacked. That's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. And it could be something small. A couple weeks ago, my aunt, she looks on her credit card bill. Somebody's hacked into my little brother's gaming console thingy and has started spending microtransactions. Nothing big, but they added up to a couple $100 that wasn't him. And it was, she had to go through the whole rigmarole of all of the stuff, changing the credit card and the debit count and all that. And it's a pain in the butt. And that's for a gaming console.
The top 4 carriers have amongst them about 427 million devices. And in everybody's cell phone, people may not realize there's probably banking information. There's probably unencrypted passwords.
Yeah, probably. You've got all kinds of stuff, right? You've got all kinds of things that you don't know about. And even me, I shop a lot online, and you know what? I'm always worried. Right? Like, okay, who am I buying stuff from? That's the crazy thing, because I don't know. Amazon is trusted, but there's other places I go, and you want to use trusted sites, but sometimes you're like, okay, this is a great deal, but is it real?
Don't shop on a unsecure site or with a provider if you're using a credit card online.
Yeah, but that's hard, right? Because it's just so easy. And again, that gaming thing is really crazy, because my aunt's like, oh my God, I have all these charges. I'm like, what? You have all these charges? She's like, yeah, I've got all these charges. And they're microtransactions. They're $1 here, $2.50 there, $8. It's just, and you don't feel it. And then when you look up and you're like, wait a minute here, that's huge.
Given the fact that you've got all the right ingredients for these gamers to have knowledge how to hack, who to hack, and that there's money that's involved just in the industry alone, it seems quite obvious that there's going to be a major event in 2019 there.
Yeah, so if you're a parent, right, and you buy your kid a gaming console and you have to hook it up because they're going to be microtransaction, which is what all these games are, is a lot of times these games are free, and you put your credit card in because along the way you're going to need new things, right? I need a new sword, I need a new gun, I need this vest, I need these kind of things, and you get hacked, and all of a sudden, boom, away you go. What's the best thing to do? Make sure you're always checking your stuff and credit report, kids.
Make sure you do check your credit report, and you can check your credit report free, one bureau every year.
Yeah, and you can go on to a lot of like Credit Sesame and all this. You can check it and kind of get a soft copy of all of that stuff. But it's a smart thing to do. It is. It really is. And make sure you monitor your bank account. It's not that hard. But just know this. No matter how hard you try, it's still going to happen eventually. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. People are texting in saying, Chad, weed is a gateway drug, because we were talking about weed earlier, and I just don't buy it's the gateway drug that people think it is. I just don't. I think alcohol is far more damaging, and it's far worse. And I think people start with that younger, and it's easier to get a hold of because mom and dad usually have it in the house. And I'm more worried about them ranshacking through somebody's medicine cabinet than I am whether or not they smoke a little pot. Even though I don't do it, right? I understand. that people think that it starts here and this is what it is. Sorry, I don't buy it. I don't buy that narrative. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You also go to thechadshow.com, grab the podcast, tune in radio app, grab the podcast there as well. Check us out across the board, Facebook, and all of those many other things that we have. And you can always tweet at us at Chad Benson Show. It is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show.